Hey everyone, welcome back. For today, we're doing day 7 arrays, and as the name of the question suggests, we're introducing a new data structure, which is arrays. In Python, we call it a list, and in this case, we are given a list of integers, and we have to print the elements in reverse order as a single line of space-separated numbers. So for example, we are given a list of 1, 2, 3, and 4. We would have to print the numbers in reverse order, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and format it nicely in a string where every single number is separated by one space. For the first line in this question, it represents an integer, the size of our array. And the second line consists of n space-separated integers that describe arrays as elements. Before we start, we'll be going through the logic that was generated by HackerRank to read in the first and the second line. And you can see on line 12 and line 13. So before we start, we'll be breaking this down, and this is in benefit for any of our viewers who happen to be Python developers who have just started learning Python. So some functions that you see on line 13 might be new to you. For example, you might be wondering, what is this rstrip function? What is this split function? And what is this map function? So to better give you more understanding and a stronger foundation, we'll be breaking down the steps of these input functions step by step. And we will be showing as a bonus how we can edit this pre-generated code to make our implementation a little easier. So with that, let's get into it. On line 12, we are reading in the first line of the input. In this case, we are reading in the integer n, and we do that with this input function over here. This reads in the first line, which consists of 4, as a string. And what we do is we call this strip function on this string, which strips the first line of any preceding or post string, like any spaces or any new line characters that happen to be on the left and the right of this line. And once you are done, you should be given a number, but in string format. So what HackerRank did is they passed this first line that is cleaned into this integer constructor. So in this case, this will give us back an integer over here. For line 13, it's all about reading the second line into a list of integers. And to make it clearer, I'll be breaking this down step by step. The first thing that HackerRank did is read in the second line using the input function like this. And once they are done, HackerRank decided to use this rstrip function that returns a copy of the string with the trailing white space removed. In other words, it is clearing all any trailing white spaces on the right side of this second line or any new line characters. So once we're done, the string is nicely formatted. But we want to get back a list of integers. So we would have to split this line by empty white space in this case. And what HackerRank did is call this split function on the string that we get over here. So this split function is called on a string, and what it does is it takes in a delimiter, and the delimiter is used to split this string into a list of strings. And in this case, if we do not provide any parameters to this split function, and we do not pass in that delimiter, it will just take a single white space as the delimiter to split the string by. So this would give us back a list of string in this case. So just to prove to you that that is the case, I'll be printing this array out together with the type of this array. So if you run this, oh yes, I would have to wrap this array with a type like this. And in this case, because I'm using the type hint of list, but this list type hint happens to not be in the Python standard library, I'll have to import it from the typing library instead. So let's run this. You will see that the array is indeed a list of strings, and the type is of type list. So at this point, we are done with explaining the input function together with the split. And the next and final thing that we are curious about is this map function over here. So because this is a list of strings, HackerRank decided to read this in as a list of integers instead. So we need to do some form of transformation on every single element inside this list. And how HackerRank did that is by using the map function over here. The map function is a higher order function. In other words, the higher order function takes in a function and takes in anything else. And in this case, we can define array map, and this array map will be calling this map function over here. The first parameter is the function to be applied to every single element in the second parameter, which is a collection. So in this case, HackerRank decided to pass in the integer constructor as the function to be applied to every single string in the collection. And the second parameter is the array itself. So what we are really doing here is we are saying for every single element in this list array, call this function integer on each of these items. And this will give back a lazy iterator, which is a map object. And this lazy iterator is not evaluated until we call next on it or we cast it into a list. Casting it into a list will force this lazy iterator to be evaluated. So let's show you a few methods of how do we advance this iterator and evaluates it only when we need it to be evaluated. So for example, if we want the first element in this case will be an integer, and we will call next on this array map object, and let's print out the first element. So as you can see, it printed the first element to be evaluated by the map object. So this is a good demonstration of how do we advance this lazy iterator. And the second way to evaluate it is to call the list function on this map object, and this forces the entire iterator to be evaluated. So let me show you what I mean by that. So array list integer, if we want the list of integer, then we will just call list on this array map, and let's print array list int. So as you can see, we got back a list of integers. The map object was fully evaluated and we got back a list of integers. So at this point, if you notice on line 13 to line 15, that is pretty much line 13 to line 15 all pasted together on a single line together. So at this point, I hope that this exercise gave you a little bit more clarity on what we are doing with the map function, together with the other two functions that we encounter on line 13, which is the rstrip as well as the split. And at this point, we are ready to start implementing the solution to this question. And before I do that, I'll be using the implementation that was provided by HackerRank. So I'll be doing this, and we'll be getting back a list of integers. So at this point, our job is to reverse this list before we convert it and format it into a list of numbers. So if we want a reversed array, I'll be introducing you a new concept, which is the reverse method over here. And this reverse method returns a reverse iterator, similar to the map object. This iterator is lazy and is not evaluated until we call next on it or we call list on it. So in this case, if we pass in the array like this, we will get back a reverse object. And if we want this to be fully evaluated, we will just pass this into the list function as well. So in this case, we will get back a list of integers. And just to show you the format of this reversed array, I'll be printing out the initial array as well, so that you can see that the array is reversed on line 14. So you can see that we were given 1, 4, 3, 2, and now we get 2, 3, 4, 1, which is what we want. Right? We want this reversed array. And now it's time for us to format these numbers into a nice string. So let's do that. So if we want the reversed array string, let's define it like this. And now we'll be introducing a new concept, which is the join function. The join function is a function on strings, and the string that you call the join function will be taken as the delimiter between every single element in your list. So in this case, if you pass in the reverse array like this, what we are saying is, hey, we would like to concatenate all numbers inside this list and put this delimiter in between each of these elements. However, here's a catch. The join function only takes in a list of strings. So actually, because we have a list of integers, this is not compatible yet. So as you can see, because we understood how the input function is implemented, now we know that actually we didn't really need this map stage to convert the string numbers into integers. We were not doing any transformations on these integers, so there's really no need for us to convert it into an integer. So let's remove the map over this list of numbers. And now, instead of getting a list of integers, we're getting a list of strings instead. So at this point, we have successfully read in the numbers on the second line as a list of strings instead. We reverse this list and we use the join method to reformat it back into a string. So at this point, we're ready to print this to the console, and this should pass the test cases that we have. So as you can see, this passed all the test cases. This question has been quite a handful, but we went through the implementation of the input functions, so you better understand how the inputs on the first and the second line are read into this Python script. And we also introduced a couple of concepts, which is using the reversed function to get back a reverse iterator over the initial collection if you wish to reverse that list of stuff. And we also use the join function to reformat a list of strings back into a string. So that's pretty much it for this question, and I hope this was useful. If you feel that this video has brought you value, please consider giving us a like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next video.